I woke up to an empty bed and the sound of Melissa's phone buzzing on the kitchen counter. She'd left it behind in her rush to get to her early morning yoga class, something she'd started doing 6 weeks ago with religious devotion that would make a monk jealous. The phone lit up again, a text from someone named Wade. Now, I'm not the type to snoop. 15 years of marriage builds trust, or so I thought. But when your wife suddenly develops a passion for downward dog at 6 a.m., and starts buying lingerie she never wears around you, well, curiosity becomes a survival instinct. I picked up the phone, no passcode. She'd removed it last month, claiming it was liberating to be so open. The irony wasn't lost on me now. The message thread with Wade made my coffee taste like ash. Can't wait for our coffee date today. That little cafe on Cherry Creek, right? The one with the private booths in the back. I scrolled up. 6 weeks of messages, coffee dates that lasted 4 hours, business meetings at hotels, photos I definitely hadn't taken of my wife, in poses that weren't meant for yoga class. My hands stayed steady as I read through every single message, but something cold was spreading through my chest. 15 years. 15 goddamn years of building something together, of believing in us, of thinking we were different from all those other couples who imploded. Each message felt like watching our life together get deleted, line by line. The engineering side of my brain cataloged every detail methodically, times, dates, locations, while some deeper part of me tried to process the impossibility of what I was seeing. This was Melissa. My Melissa. The woman who cried during commercials, who still left little notes in my lunch, who knew exactly how I liked my coffee after all these years. Years of military training and engineering problem solving had taught me patience, methodical thinking. This was just another system failure to analyze before implementing corrective measures. But as I sat there in our kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of our morning routine, her coffee cup still warm, the newspaper folded to the crossword she'd been working on, I felt something I hadn't experienced since my deployment days. That hollow feeling when you realize everything you thought you knew about your situation was wrong. The front door slammed. Melissa's voice echoed through the house. "Bryce, I forgot my phone. Have you seen it?" I set the phone exactly where I'd found it, my hands moving with automatic precision while my mind reeled. How long had this been going on? How many lies had I swallowed without question? How many times had I come home tired from work, grateful for her understanding about late nights and weekend projects, while she was planning to meet another man? "Kitchen counter," I called back, my voice perfectly normal. 20 years in the military and engineering had taught me to function under pressure. "Right where you left it." She rushed in, her yoga outfit pristine, not a drop of sweat on her, her blonde hair perfect, makeup fresh. Either she'd found the fountain of youth at that yoga studio, or she'd been somewhere else entirely. The observation hit me with crystalline clarity. No sweat, no disheveled hair, no exhausted flush from an hour of physical exercise. Just perfect makeup, and the faint scent of cologne that definitely wasn't mine. "Thanks, babe." She grabbed the phone, kissed my cheek with lips that tasted like mint and lies. "I'm meeting Jennifer for lunch today. Then I have that client dinner tonight. Don't wait up." Jennifer? That was new. Yesterday it was Rachel. Last week, Madison. My wife had apparently developed the most active social life in the history of suburban Denver. I watched her stuff the phone into her purse, noting how carefully she positioned it, screen down, completely hidden. When had she started doing that? When had her phone become something to protect instead of something to share? "Sounds great," I said, testing something. "Have fun with your coffee." She froze for just a second. "What coffee?" "The one you're always talking about. That new blend you love so much." Relief washed over her face so quickly, I almost missed it. "Oh, right, yes. It's amazing what they're doing with beans these days." The casual lie rolled off her tongue so smoothly that I wondered how many others I'd missed. How many times had I accepted her explanations without question, trusting in 15 years of shared history, while she constructed an elaborate fiction around me? After she left, I sat in my basement office and did what I do best. I gathered information. 15 years as a mechanical engineer and project manager teaches you that every system has vulnerabilities. You just have to know where to look. But as I opened my laptop, my hands were shaking slightly. This wasn't a failed bearing or a structural stress analysis. This was my marriage, our life, everything I'd built my identity around for the past decade and a half. Melissa's laptop was still logged into her email. Her social media accounts were open on her tablet. She'd gotten sloppy, overconfident. People always do when they think they're smarter than everyone else. But as I scrolled through her digital life, I kept thinking about the woman I'd married, the marketing coordinator who'd laughed at my terrible engineering jokes, the woman who'd supported my decision to start my own firm, who'd believed in me when nobody else did. When had she become this stranger? Wade Hutchinson, business consultant, married to a woman named Diana, 2 kids. His LinkedIn profile showed him speaking at business development seminars, selling companies promises of growth while apparently stealing other men's wives on the side. 42 years old, divorced once already. The pattern was becoming clear. I spent the morning taking screenshots, copying files, building a complete picture. By noon, I had enough evidence to end my marriage and ruin 2 other lives. But as I sat there surrounded by printouts and digital evidence, I felt something unexpected. Not just anger or betrayal, but a profound sadness. This wasn't just about catching a cheating spouse. This was about watching 15 years of shared dreams crumble into a pile of deleted text messages and hotel receipts. We'd built something together, a home, a business, a life. We'd survived my deployment, her father's death, the lean years when my firm was just starting, or at least I'd thought we had. The real work was just beginning. I picked up my phone and sent Melissa a text. Hope Wade likes his coffee strong today. Give him my regards. The response came back in 30 seconds. What are you talking about? Then another. Bryce, what do you mean? Then, this isn't funny. I turned off my phone and went back to work. But even as I tried to focus on the technical drawings spread across my desk, my mind kept circling back to the same question. How do you rebuild trust in a structure that's already failed? In engineering, when a system shows critical stress fractures, you don't just patch it up and hope for the best. You tear it down and start over with better materials, stronger foundations. But this wasn't a bridge or a building. This was my marriage, and I wasn't sure if some things, once broken, could ever be properly repaired. My old workout partner Pierce used to say that the best engineers aren't the ones who build the strongest structures. They're the ones who see the whole system, who understand failure modes 3 steps ahead, while everyone else is still figuring out the load calculations. I hadn't been to the gym consistently in months, between work pressure and what I'd thought were relationship responsibilities. But muscle memory kicked in the moment I walked through the door. The familiar rhythm of weights and cardio helped clear my head, preparing for what came next. Thought you'd gone soft sitting behind that desk all day, Pierce said, spotting me on bench press. Maybe I'm ready to get back in shape. Pierce studied my face with the same intensity he'd used to read structural blueprints for 20 years. This about that wife of yours? I'd forgotten how little got past Pierce. He'd grown up in this neighborhood, knew everyone's business through the engineering community grapevine. In a tight-knit professional network like Denver's, reputation was everything. Word traveled fast, and it traveled accurately. What makes you say that? Saw her at Cafe Monarch last week. She wasn't alone, and it wasn't you she was with. Pierce shrugged. Figured you'd either show up here or show up at Murphy's Pub. Glad you chose the gym. The weight felt heavier than it should have. Not the iron, but the knowledge that my personal business was becoming public. In our professional community, where trust was the foundation of every contract and handshake deal, this kind of exposure could be devastating. It wasn't just about my marriage anymore. It was about my reputation, my business, my ability to look clients in the eye and promise them integrity when I couldn't even trust my own wife. I spent an hour working through my routine, letting my muscles remember what they used to know. Each rep felt like shaking off rust, clearing my head, preparing for what came next. The methodical nature of exercise mirrored my approach to problem solving, systematic, progressive, measurable results. You planning to do something stupid? Pierce asked as I finished my set. I'm planning to do something smart. There's a difference. But even as I said it, I wondered if there really was a difference. Smart would probably be filing for divorce, cutting my losses, protecting my assets. What I was contemplating felt more like controlled demolition. Precise, calculated, but destructive nonetheless. That afternoon, I put the first part of my plan into motion. Melissa had been using our joint email account to coordinate with Wade, thinking I never checked it. She was right. I hadn't until now. I forwarded one of their more explicit exchanges to Wade's business email with a simple subject line. I think you dropped this. Then I copied his wife Diana on it, along with 3 of the biggest gossips in Melissa's book club. The response was immediate. My phone started ringing within minutes. Bryce, what the hell is going on? It was Jennifer, the real Jennifer, not whoever Melissa had been pretending to have lunch with. I'm just sharing information, I said. Transparency in marriage, you know. Melissa's always talking about how important communication is. She's going to lose her mind when she finds out. Probably, but at least she'll know I found out. Wade called next. His voice was tight, controlled, the practiced calm of someone used to managing crises. We need to talk. No, we really don't. This doesn't have to get ugly. You're right, it doesn't have to. It already is. I hung up and waited. The beautiful thing about people who think they're master manipulators is how predictable they become when their control starts slipping. They revert to patterns, make desperate moves, reveal their true nature under pressure. Melissa came home early, her face flushed with anger and panic. She'd clearly been crying, though she'd tried to fix her makeup in the car. For a moment, seeing her distress, I felt a flicker of the old protective instinct. 15 years of conditioning don't disappear overnight. This was the woman I'd once promised to protect, to support through anything. But that promise had been made to someone who apparently no longer existed. How could you do this to me? Do what? Share your messages? I thought you'd be proud. You put so much effort into writing them. You had no right to read my private conversations. Private? We're married, Melissa. We share everything, remember? Joint accounts, joint credit cards, joint email. It's all very joint. She started, pacing the kitchen like a caged animal. Our kitchen, the one we'd renovated 3 years ago, spending weekends at Home Depot, arguing over cabinet hardware and tile patterns. How many conversations about our future had we had in this room? How many plans had we made while drinking morning coffee at this same counter where I'd discovered her betrayal? This is going to ruin everything. Everything or just your fun. You don't understand. Wade and I were working on a business project together. Those messages, we were just what? Researching the hospitality industry? Testing mattress quality for Consumer Reports? Her face crumpled. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. 15 years of marriage doesn't just disappear because your spouse turns out to be a stranger. But beneath the sympathy was something harder, colder, the engineer in me recognizing a fundamental structural failure that couldn't be repaired with surface fixes. Bryce, please, we can work this out. We can go to counseling. We can what? Pretend this never happened? Go back to you lying about yoga classes while you meet your business partner at hotels? It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. The only question is what we're going to do about it. She looked up with something like hope in her eyes. What do you mean? I mean, you have 2 choices. You can come clean, apologize, and we can try to work through this like adults. Or you can keep lying, keep playing games, and find out what happens when you mess with someone who's better at games than you are. Are you threatening me? I'm offering you an opportunity. Take it or leave it. She wiped her eyes, and I watched her face change. The vulnerability disappeared, replaced by something harder, more calculating. In that moment, I realized I was looking at someone I'd never really known. The woman I'd married had been real, but she'd been incomplete. This harder person had always been there, waiting beneath the surface. Fine. You want to play hardball? Let's play. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I poured myself a beer and sat on the back porch, watching the sun set over the Rocky Mountains. Our house, our view, our life together crumbling in real time while the mountains stood eternal, indifferent to human drama. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You just made a big mistake. I smiled and typed back. No, I just made the first move. Melissa's first counter move came the next morning. I woke up to 17 missed calls from my biggest client and an email marked urgent from Pierce. Bryce, what the hell is going on? Mountain States Engineering is saying you sent them a virus that crashed their whole bidding system after opening your project files. The accusation hit me like a physical blow. Mountain States represented 40% of my annual revenue. If they pulled their contracts, my firm would be in serious trouble. More than that, my reputation in the engineering community would be destroyed. In our business, trust was everything. One client questioning your integrity could start a domino effect that would destroy decades of careful relationship building. I checked my sent folder. Sure enough, there was an email I hadn't written, sent from my account to Mountain State's IT department, with a file attachment that had probably set off every security alarm they had. Clever girl. She'd used my own computer against me while I was sleeping, but not clever enough. She'd underestimated what 15 years of cybersecurity awareness and military paranoia had taught me about protecting digital assets. Pierce, I need you to call Mountain States and tell them to check the metadata on that file. Look at the creation timestamp and the IP address it was sent from. What are you talking about? Trust me, have them run a full analysis on that email. I'll wait. 20 minutes later, Pierce called back. The file was created at 2 a.m. from an IP address that traces to the Starbucks on Colfax, and the writing style analysis shows it wasn't composed by the same person who wrote your other emails. Exactly. Someone's trying to sabotage my business, Pierce. I think I know who. This is getting weird, man. You need to handle whatever's going on at home before it destroys everything we've built. He was right, but not in the way he thought. I wasn't going to let Melissa destroy my business. I was going to use her attempt to destroy her own credibility. The attack on my professional reputation crossed a line. This wasn't just about our marriage anymore. This was about my livelihood, my ability to support my family, my standing in a community I'd spent years building relationships in. I forwarded the complete analysis to Melissa's boss, along with screenshots of her threatening texts and a politely worded explanation that my wife seemed to be having some kind of breakdown and was lashing out at my clients. I suggested that her company might want to keep an eye on her behavior, as she clearly wasn't thinking clearly. Then I called Wade. "We need to meet," I said when he answered. "I told you we have nothing to discuss." "We do now? Melissa tried to sabotage my business last night. That makes this more than just a marriage problem." There was a long pause. When he spoke again, his voice was different, more calculating. "What do you want?" "REI parking lot behind Park Meadows. 1 hour. Come alone." The REI parking lot was perfect, public enough to be safe, private enough to have a real conversation. Wade was waiting by his silver BMW, looking like a man who'd spent the night staring at the ceiling. Even from a distance, I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he kept checking his phone. Good. Pressure made people make mistakes. "This has gone far enough," he said as I approached. "Has it? Because from where I stand, it's just getting started. Look, I'm sorry about what happened with Melissa. Things got out of hand, but it's over now." "Over? Funny, because she was at your hotel again yesterday afternoon. Room 237 at the Marriott. You guys really should vary your routine." His face went pale. "How did you—" "I'm very good at finding information, Wade. It's what I do for a living, and what I found is that you're not just having an affair with my wife. You're using her to get information about my clients, aren't you?" "That's ridiculous." "Is it? Because 3 of the companies Melissa asked me about over dinner in the past month have suddenly decided they need business consulting. Your business consulting. That's quite a coincidence." Wade straightened up, trying to regain his composure. "You can't prove anything. I can prove everything. Email trails, credit card records, hotel security footage. The question is whether I need to." But even as I said it, something nagged at me. Wade's reaction wasn't quite right. There was surprise there, but not guilt. Not the specific kind of guilt I'd expected to see. He was definitely involved with Melissa, but the business angle seemed to catch him off guard, which meant either he was a better actor than I'd given him credit for, or there was another layer to this that I hadn't discovered yet. "What do you want?" "I want you to understand that you picked the wrong guy to mess with. I want you to know that every move you make, every call you take, every client you meet with, I'm going to be watching. And when you inevitably screw up, because guys like you always do, I'm going to be there to document it." I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen. It was a recording app, and it had been running since I'd walked into the parking lot. This conversation, for instance, your admission that things got out of hand with my wife, your knowledge of exactly which hotel room you were in yesterday. Very interesting stuff. You can't record me without my permission. Actually, in Colorado, I can. One-party consent law. Look it up. I turned to walk away, then stopped. "Oh, and Wade, tell Melissa that if she tries to sabotage my business again, I'll make sure every engineering firm in Denver knows exactly what kind of people they're dealing with. Some games have consequences." But as I studied the evidence that evening, something nagged at me. The timeline was too neat, the trail too obvious. Melissa was many things, but she wasn't usually this careless. Someone who could successfully coordinate an affair for weeks shouldn't be leaving such obvious tracks, unless she wasn't the mastermind I thought she was. I opened a new file and started digging deeper, following connections I'd missed before. By midnight, I had a very different picture of what had been happening, and I was starting to realize that I'd been playing the wrong game entirely. The revelation hit me at 3 a.m., staring at my computer screen with eyes that burned from too much coffee and too little sleep. Melissa wasn't the mastermind. She was the distraction. The real scheme was elegant in its simplicity. While I'd been focused on my cheating wife and her obvious affair, someone had been systematically stealing my project proposals, my client specifications, and my business relationships. The affair wasn't the crime, it was the cover. Wade's consulting company had been hemorrhaging money for 2 years, according to the financial records I'd finally thought to pull. Then, suddenly, 6 weeks ago, he'd landed a series of major contracts, all with companies that had previously worked with me. But Wade wasn't smart enough to pull this off alone. The digital fingerprints I'd been following led somewhere else entirely, to Haley Patterson, Melissa's best friend and digital marketing specialist. The same Haley who'd been encouraging Melissa's girls' nights out and yoga classes. The same Haley who worked in digital marketing and knew exactly how to steal information without leaving obvious traces. I'd been so focused on the affair that I'd missed the real crime happening right under my nose. The betrayal cut deeper now, knowing it wasn't just about my marriage. It was about my life's work, 15 years of building client relationships and establishing trust in a competitive industry. My phone buzzed, a text from Melissa. "We need to talk. Meet me at Washington Park in an hour. Come alone." Washington Park was empty except for a few early morning joggers. Melissa was sitting on a bench near the lake, looking smaller and more fragile than I'd seen her in years. When she looked up at me, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. "Bryce, I think I'm in trouble. Real trouble." She wrapped her arms around herself. "I need to tell you something about Wade, about what he's really been doing." "He's been using you," I said. "The whole time, he's been using you to get information about my business. You know, I figured it out. What I don't know is how deep you're in it." Deeper than I wanted to be. It started small. He'd ask casual questions about your work. When I hesitated about giving specifics, he said it would help both our careers if his business took off. "When did you realize it wasn't casual?" "Last week, when he started asking for detailed client information. But, Bryce, there's something else. He's not working alone. Haley's been helping him. She's the one who figured out how to access your files. She convinced me that having an affair would be liberating while she robbed you blind." The pieces fell into place. How much did they get? Everything. Client lists, project files, financial records. Enough to destroy your business or sell to your biggest competitors. We sat in silence, watching the sun rise over the mountains. Finally, I spoke. "What do you want from me, Melissa?" "I want to help you stop them. And Bryce, Wade called me an hour ago. He's planning to disappear. Take everything and start over somewhere else." "If we do this," I said, "we do it my way. No more lies, no more games. And when it's over, we're done. The marriage, everything." She nodded, tears flowing. "I understand." The warehouse meeting went exactly as planned. With Melissa's cooperation, we set up a sting operation that caught Wade, Haley, and their buyer, Michael Walsh from Alpine Engineering, in the act. The recording devices captured everything: conspiracy, theft of trade secrets, attempted sale of stolen property. As the police led them away in handcuffs, Melissa asked quietly, "What happens now?" "Now they get prosecuted. Your cooperation keeps you out of prison, but your career here is over." "And us?" I looked at her for a long moment. The woman I'd married was still there somewhere, but buried too deep under layers of deception and betrayal. "There is no us, Melissa. There hasn't been for a long time." She nodded. "I know. For what it's worth, I hope you figure out how to trust again. I hope you figure out who you want to be. Just figure it out somewhere else." Detective Rodriguez shook my hand afterward. "What's next for you?" I looked out at the city lights, thinking about the work ahead. Next, I start over, but this time, I do it right. Pierce drove me home while Melissa gave her statement. The house felt different when I walked in. Not empty, but clean, like a weight had been lifted. I poured myself a beer and sat on the back porch. Tomorrow would bring hard conversations with clients, relationship rebuilding, starting over in many ways. Some clients would walk away. Some relationships would never recover. But for the first time in weeks, I felt like I was in control of my own life again. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You think you won, but this isn't over?" I smiled and typed back, "Yes, it is." And yes, I did. Then I blocked the number and started planning my comeback. The mountains stood eternal in the distance, and I realized that some things, trust, integrity, self-respect, were worth fighting for, even when the cost was everything else.